Hello, welcome to the Bible Prophecy Shop. This video is the start of a series about the days of the week. The biblical week is first presented to us at the beginning of Genesis. The description of the week in Genesis is rich with symbolism and prophecy. We must remember that the primary statement that begins this amazing description of events is not there to tell us how long it took, but rather who did it and why. Before we dive into this, we need to answer one question, because so many people, they get stuck on this one thing and it prevents them from being able to go any further. So we're going to have to answer this one question, because if you get stuck here within the first few sentences of the Bible, how can you expect to go any further? So the problem is that some people hold to the idea that we're talking about a day as being a literal 24-hour rotation of the earth, and that the creation week is referring to a literal 7 24-hour rotations of the earth week. In fact, there's actually nothing in this creation story, or in any part of the Bible for that matter, that would indicate that we should interpret the creation explanation in the most literally possible way. It's actually quite the opposite. Many times throughout the Bible, the word day is used prophetically, or referring to a time or epoch. Just as I might say, the earth was much different in the day of the dinosaurs. Though that statement is accurate and truthful, it is certainly not meant to indicate that the dinosaurs only existed on Earth for 24 hours. Many people who can see with their own eyes and who also accept what science has proven find it impossible to believe the entire creation of the universe took place in a mere 168 Earth hours. Therefore, they reject the idea that the Bible accurately reflects the origin story of mankind. Jesus also lost many followers when he said in John 6:53 through 66 that to have eternal life, you must eat his flesh and drink his blood. Now, this statement's obviously not meant to be taken literally, but rather spiritually and symbolically. In order to make these distinctions, we need only to use common sense. The outline in Genesis is not meant to explain time frames, but rather to point out that the events were the work of God's hands and divine decisions. In this video series, we're going to take a look at the symbolic and prophetic aspects of the creation story and how it relates to the human story. When we see how the prophecy tells of human history, it gives us confidence in God's plan for the future. Now, before we dive into symbolic aspects of the first day of creation, I would like to establish some context. In the book of Genesis, the first chapter, verses 1 through 5, we encounter the narrative of God creating light. The verses read, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, and God said, 'Let there be light,' and there was light." What's happening here between verses 3 and verses 14? Well, in verse 3, we have the creation of light in the evening and the morning of the first day. Then in 14 through 19, we have the creation of the sun, the moon, and the stars for the separation of night and day, seasons and times. How can the sun and the moon be created for the separation of day and night on the fourth day? Well, it's because verses 3 is not talking about physical light. It's talking about enlightenment, God revealing himself. When translated as enlightenment, it more accurately conveys the idea behind the Hebrew word used in the original text. The Bible tells us the beginning of wisdom is faith in God, and that creation testifies of God's existence and character. In verse 3, God is beginning by revealing himself with a word. That word is light. This decision to begin the process of revealing his own heart and character was the first step, the first day. This separation signifies a fundamental division, a theme that recurs throughout the creation narrative. It is symbolic of the division of good and evil, order and chaos, knowledge and ignorance. Throughout history, various theological interpretations have been offered regarding the symbolism of the first day of creation. Some emphasize the idea that the creation narrative serves as an allegorical representation of spiritual renewal, with each day symbolizing a step towards spiritual enlightenment. And that is true. The process of creation outlined in the beginning of Genesis does run parallel with our own personal spiritual journey. Our first step toward Him is to be enlightened by acknowledging His existence. It's important to note that these symbolic interpretations don't negate scientific understanding. In fact, many believers and scholars embrace both scientific understanding of the universe's origin and the symbolic spiritual truths presented in the Bible. In reality, science and spirituality can and do exist harmoniously. When we learn how to discern between what is meant to be taken literally and what is meant figuratively, we can use a much more common sense approach to gaining true wisdom. The symbolism of the first day of creation can also have practical applications in our lives. It encourages us to seek knowledge, embrace wisdom, and strive for spiritual enlightenment. We can use this symbolism as a guide for our personal growth and understanding. It is the first step in a 7-step process. In order to have peace with God, we must first come to know who He is. Although I do firmly believe the account given in Genesis to be factual and scientifically compatible description of the order in which the physical universe and earth as we know it were formed, the first day of creation in the Bible is rich in symbolism as well. It represents the beginning of God's divine work, the separation of light from darkness, and the initiation of spiritual and intellectual enlightenment. The symbolic interpretation of this narrative adds depth to our understanding of creation and to our place in the universe. Another way of looking at this, or another aspect I should say, is the 7,000-year prophecy. This idea comes from Psalms chapter 90, verse 4, and also 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 8, where in both places it says that 1,000 years is as a day to the Lord. Now, in context, these are not meant as literal statements, but they're meant to point out that God exists outside of time. So there is room for debate on this, of course, but I feel it's definitely worth mentioning here and keeping in mind, because when we look at the day is as 1,000 years structure, we do have the remarkable advantage of looking back at the last approximately 6,000 years and seeing how they actually do fit. When we apply this to the 1,000-year prophecy, we see that in the first 1,000 years of history that began with Adam, Adam gained the knowledge of good and evil. Unfortunately, the enlightenment that he gained was in opposition to God's plan, because rather than relying on God to reveal wisdom in His way and according to God's plan, Adam chose to follow his own path and place his faith in a lie. Nevertheless, Adam did gain that knowledge on the first 1,000-year day. God warned Adam that if he ate of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, that he would die in that day. And we see in Genesis chapter 5, Adam lived 930 years. That's right, just short of the first 1,000-year day. I hope you found this exploration of the symbolism of the first day of creation in the Bible enlightening, and this introduction encourages you to dive deeper into your own Bible studies. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What are your thoughts about the symbolic nature of this narrative? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content. Most importantly, if these lessons help you, share them with others. Thanks for joining me today, and I'll see you in the next video, Creation Day 2, The Dividing of the Waters. When it comes available, you'll find the link right here. Remember, the Bible is a rich source of symbolism and wisdom. Exploring its deeper meanings can be a rewarding journey. Until next time, stay curious and keep seeking the light of knowledge and understanding in your life.